Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new series on the Peruvian Waltz. We do podcast every Tuesday, sometimes Wednesdays if it's inconvenient. This week is going to be a Wednesday, and we're gonna do something new. We're gonna do a special pod. Now, this is going to be a trial for now to see how it goes down. Basically, what we're gonna do in these pods is we're gonna talk about something that either doesn't belong on the main pod or something that there's a whole topic that takes a podcast and we don't have time to fit it in the regular podcast because of the everyday news that we get or weekly news that we have to cover in the main pod. So this is going to be the special pods, and they're going to be some of them might be shorter, some of them might be longer, might be same length. It's kind of a go with the flow pod. So yeah, we hope you guys enjoy, and we want to start here. We are doing another Segunda División en Copa Peru podcast, which we did a while back with me and Christopher, and basically we're just gonna recap the Segunda División en Copa Peru instead of talking. Last time we kind of talked about like funny things from it. This time we're gonna like recap it and maybe bring up some funny things as well. So. Yeah, I'm here with Christopher Vizcardo, who he's my only guest because he and I are pretty much the only one in the Peruvian Waltz who know the Segunda División and Copa Peru in depth. So how are you, Christopher?
Pretty good. I am sporting today, for those that are watching on YouTube, my Sport Ancash kit, which I promised to do a few weeks back. And still disappointed at the result of my team, unfortunately, this last weekend with the first national stage match, which we tied, but I think that we'll probably have an opportunity to talk about that here pretty soon. But yeah, I mean, as usual, happy to be here. I wasn't in the pod last week, so it's going to be a good chance to talk about Peruvian soccer.
It should be a lot of fun. And just out of curiosity, who's on the back of that shirt? Is it Ronnie Calera?
No, this is number 9.
Ronnie Calera.
No. I like to think it was probably Germán Carti.
Carti. Did Chicho Ibarra play for Ancash?
No, Checho Ibarra. I don't think Checho Ibarra ever got around. But I know
he's literally played for every single team except for a few of them. He even played for San Simon. I mean, he's played everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, he played for San Simon one of the last years of his career. I'm gonna check it quickly. We should.
Yeah, he did.
We are planned, by the way. I didn't expect to talk about Checho Ibarra, so that's how I'm looking this up. I'm just checking if he played for Ancash. He did not. He did not. He played for Once Caldas, Huancayo, Cienciano, Juan Aurich, Melgar, Sport Boys, Once Caldas, Cienciano, Estudiantes, Huaral. I could go on this list forever. So he was a journeyman, and a pretty terrible one as well. Let's be fair. Like, he's the top scorer Peruvian in history, but he wasn't that good. Let's be honest.
Germán Carti, on the other hand, did play for us, and I believe that he even played for us the year that we were in the Copa Sudamericana tournament also.
When you beat Ñublense 4-0, or is this another one?
What was that?
Is it the one where you beat Ñublense 4-0?
Yes, I mean he played that year, so if I'm not mistaken, I do remember seeing footage of him during one of those two games, either Ñublense or Palmeiras. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that he was part of that squad in 2008.
All right. Well, let's get started now for real. So the Segunda División, I'm just gonna whip up the table really quickly here because I have it up. Basically, the Segunda División, it's kind of gone to a brawl. Like last year, it was a 2-man race between Sport Boys and Cesar Vallejo. Like, it was really just those two. No one else even came close. And now it's kind of close. Cesar Vallejo looked like they were going to walk it, but they've kind of gone up the pace. They've only won one of their last 5 games, and Cienciano are 4 points behind them. Menucci have a game in hand, and they are let me just check this. They are 8-9 points, I want to say. No, it is 7. It's just 7 points. But they have a game in hand. So let's look at some of these fixtures, shall we? And then let's see what we think is going to go on. So I have all the list of fixtures. So Cesar Vallejo, the next game is at home to Juan Aurich. And then they go away to Hualgayoc. We don't know how hard it is to play over there. Alfredo Salinas at home. Alianza Atlético away. Sport Loreto at home. Willy Cerrato away. And Carlos Menucci at home. So, Christopher, what do you make of those fixtures? I'm thinking there's 3 guaranteed wins in there, which it could. Last year, I think they were like at 58 points. So 3, 48, 51, 54. I'll give them the 54 points. So what do you if they win those 3? And it's not that's forgetting about the other matches as well. So what do you think about those fixtures, Christopher?
So, well, first of all, I think that they probably I think that the games against Carlos Manucci, especially that being the very last game of the season, of course, there's a big rivalry between the two teams in Trujillo. But I feel like that could be a tough game, but there is a game that they will potentially come out on top on. Same thing with Juan Aurich. I mean, for them playing in Trujillo or playing in what's the name of just escaped my mind. What
Retrace your steps, Christopher. Retrace your steps.
Where does Juan Aurich play? The name of the city.
Chiclayo. Oh no, I think they're playing in Chongoyapa right now.
Right. But for them playing in La Libertad or playing in Lambayeque, those two are sister regions, honestly. So it's not really that big of a deal. Well, in this particular case, of course, they're going to be playing at home. I think going away to Hualgayoc, that's always a tough part, right? As we have seen Hualgayoc have a terrible pitch, and it is also terrible just to try to go all the way out there. If I'm not mistaken, it was either against Hualgayoc or, yeah, it has to have been the game against Hualgayoc last year, the very last match day that they unfortunately tied. They missed a penalty, and it's the reason why they're not in the first division this year.
Basically.
I mean, honestly, it was up to them, and then they weren't able to finish it, and Sport Boys was able to force that tiebreaker in Cusco that I believe you attended, right, Brian?
I did. I was there. I was even on the pitch taking pictures. So
wow.
it was a good experience. It was the best trip I've ever done. I've gone to many places before.
Mm-hmm.
So what else?
Going back on to the fixture, though, I mean, Sport Loreto also at home. Sport Loreto is not doing very well this year either. I think they have honestly, they have a pretty comfortable setup for these last few match days. But then again, as we know, the league has instituted a new format this year. So even if they do win by a lot of points, it gives them some advantage in the playoff bracket. But then I'm sure that they're going to run into some problems, depending on how all the other positions end up lining up, all the other 6 under them. But who knows? There's also a chance that Cienciano might overtake him by then also.
Which, speaking of, let's look at Cienciano's sessions. First of all, Mr. Raul, welcome in the chat. He's chatting with us. We know what is the best team in the second division playing the ball. Manucci and Cienciano are playing good too. How many teams go up? 3 or 4? That depends. There's a new format this year that 4 teams will go up, but it could be 2 from Copa Peru, 3 from Copa Peru, or 3 from Segunda División. It's not 4 from one division because one team from Copa Peru and 1 team from Segunda División are both guaranteed to go up. So it's one of those combinations. And we'll talk about our ideal promotions later. Right now, we're going to talk about some of the fixtures. Now, I guess we're going to look at Cienciano's fixtures as well. Alianza Atlético at home first, which I think is a tough game, but I think Cienciano do have enough to win that. Sport Loreto away. Willy Cerrato at home, which I just want to know if God can save Willy Cerrato in that game. We'll talk about Willy Cerrato in some time. Or Cerrato Pagamayo. That's their name. It's not Willy Cerrato anymore. I got to get used to that. Carlos Manucci away. Copsol at home. Locamenes away and Santa Rosa at home. I think that's a very favorable line of fixtures. I think the only like really tough game, they're probably not favorites, is against Carlos Manucci at away from home. The rest are going to be favorites no matter what. So what do you think with that run of fixtures, Christopher? Do you think that they can catch up to San Vallejo, especially given San Vallejo have at least 3 guaranteed wins? I'm not saying that they guaranteed to win it, but like they're 90% chance are going to win it. I'm talking about Salinas, Cerrato, and Sport Loreto. I'm talking about those 3 games for Vallejo. But for Cienciano, do you think it's a very favorable line of fixtures?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if you really look at more into Cesar Vallejo's fixture, like we were talking a second ago, the furthest distance that they have to travel is to what? Like Hualgayoc, right? One really far away game, really. Well, in the meantime, I'm seeing that Cienciano does have to travel out a little bit more, right? And of course, them being a team from the Sierra and going down to sea level is not as big of a deal as Cesar Vallejo going up to the mountains. But
It's
still,
vice
the
versa.
travel can wear you out. Considering that, like for example, it's a short distance to for Cesar Vallejo to see Juan Aurich, even if it's well, they're playing at home actually, or Carlos Manucci at home. I mean, it feels like they're all set really to take it, at least in the league table, of course. But I'm sure that Cienciano will give them a run for their money. But again, I think it would be kind of crazy. We would really have to see Cesar Vallejo really lose their form in these next few matches for them to lose the first place on the table.
Well, they have lost form. I'll be honest. I didn't really. I mean, I checked the results, but I didn't write them down, so I'm not going to read it. I don't want to distract myself too much from the podcast itself. But I do remember. Did write down that they only won one of the last 5 games, which is pretty bad if you consider Cervejo. And I looked at some of their squad, and it's not as strong as last year. Last year they had Jairzinho Bailon. They had I don't remember who they had net. I don't remember who they had in net, but I believe Rostein was still there. They had Pando, who was in good form. He was killing it in the Segunda División. And I think Quinteros was still there. And this year they have Requena, who I don't rate Requena in any sort of division, so I think it's a pretty bad sign no matter what. I still can't believe he played in that game against Mexico for Peru. That was awful. Wally Sanchez, who he ended up in this division. He's kind of old. He was in Colombia 2 years ago, and he was doing all right. So I think that was a good signing. Raciel Garcia, who really did well with Guaral last season. So that's another good signing. And Orejuela, who's 38 years old now. Anyone who follows Segunda knows that the veteran experience is the most important thing you can have in the Segunda División, because those are usually the ones that are top scorer. The physique doesn't matter for them. If they have level and they're old, then they have veteran experience or maybe some experience. They're usually going to do well. Orejuela has 12 goals in 21 appearances, almost 20. And then there's the young Ali Benitez, who did well last year. I believe he's 21 years old, and he has 4 goals right now. So that's an interesting one. The one that's not playing so well this year is Pando. Pando, and I think it's Vallejo. That's Vallejo's fault, because Pando has been their star player for many years, and the fact that they're not playing much and he only has 3 goals, I think that's hurt them a little bit. Now, as for Cienciano, they have Ramon Rodriguez, who's 41 years old, and he's still tearing it up. He has 10 goals. Like I said, age is very important in this division. There's Panzariello, who just signed a few weeks ago. If you remember, I don't know if you remember, Christopher, but Panzariello was the one who tore UTC apart in the Copa Sudamericana with the Rampla Juniors. So it tells you that these teams can pay money to other players from abroad, because the Peruvian leagues pay better, are up economically better than the Uruguayan clubs. At least the provincial Andean clubs are, not the Limeños so much. But it tells you that they can pay.
Well, I think that obviously there is some really, really wide gaps between some of the teams. As we know, Cesar Vallejo has the backing of a particular family that is very involved in politics and in government and in business in Trujillo and that area. And Cesar Vallejo basically has unlimited pockets, unlimited funds. Now,
Because they get all the money from the university, I'm pretty sure.
What was that?
They usually get the money from the university.
I'm sure I don't know where they get their money. In fact, nobody knows where that family gets their money. Let's be honest.
The university.
Well, you can say the university. Some people have alleged that there is a darker side to all of that, but we're not going to go into that anyways. But as for Cienciano, it does surprise me, to be honest, considering that part of the reason why they descended to the second division in the first place was because they were running into some financial trouble. I know that there was someone on Facebook that commented that he wanted to know a little bit more about ownership, and unfortunately, that is something that we could work on for sure in the Peruvian Waltz, but it is a little secretive and it's a little complicated to try to figure out how some of these teams work. And part of the problem is, just the way that this laws are set up in Peru. But yeah, I mean, it really did surprise me that you mentioned that player, because I do remember him during the Sudamericana just
Yep.
this year alone against UTC, right? And
Yeah. He was pretty good in the first leg too, but in the second leg is where he really showed up and he tore Utese apart. But let's move on to another team. Let's not talk about Panzarella. First, I want to say one more thing about Cinciano. They have a lot of local talent, which is good to see. Ronella Magda, Rudy Palomino, who's actually born in Machu Picchu. Don't ask me how that works. I have no idea. Like,
well, there's Machu Picchu City, which is right off the archaeological.
isn't that Aguas Calientes though? I'm pretty sure it's Aguas
It has,
Calientes.
it has like three different names. One of them being Machu Picchu City.
Fair
Some other
enough.
people call it Aguascalientes. But no,
Fair
he was.
enough.
I doubt he was actually born in the citadel of Machu Picchu.
All right. So there's also Inti Garrafa who played for Deportivo Garcilaso last year, and I thought it was pretty good. He's doing quite well in Cinciano this year. So, and there's Ankajima, who sounds like an Andean name. I don't know if he's announced his birthplace yet because everywhere I've checked is Lima. I'm not sure, but he's on loan from Sporting Cristal. Looked like an interesting player, so one to watch. And Biasanti was a really good signing because he was Ayacucho's star keeper for many years, and pretty much one of the reasons Ayacucho stayed up so many times.
Yeah,
So
no,
much.
for sure.
Because now he's gone. Now he's gone, and look where Ayacucho are. They look like they're gonna go down. So
Yeah, no. Well, he's always been a good penalty taker. You know, I think he has one of those qualities that it has starting to become a little bit more rare in goalies. I mean, it was kind of a fad back in the '90s where your goalie was also your best penalty taker. So for Ayacucho, I remember him many times where he would be the one that would go up there and shoot penalties. You know, get out of his box and go all the way to the other side of the field and not be scared.
like Chilavert was one of the great examples. Rogeri Seni, who scored like 100 goals as a goalkeeper.
Yeah, as a goalkeeper, exactly. So, and also he was a big leader, and I think someone that, well, let's be honest, Biasanti is a little bit older, right? So he was seen as a bit of a team leader. He was team captain for Ayacucho for a long time,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think that we can blame the Ayacucho not being able to retain him as a big reason why they're in so much trouble today. And talking about his performance in Cienciano, I think he's been pretty solid. He's been pretty solid. Let's do remember that Cienciano had a really slow start at the beginning of the season. I believe it's 6 games without winning at all. I panicked. I freaked out because obviously I do not believe that Cienciano deserves to be in a lower division with its history and its past. But since then they have been able to come back really and to pull off things that we didn't see them doing at the beginning of the season.
By the way, a shout out to Peter. Hello, Peter. I didn't think he showed up. Didn't think he showed up in the chat. But how are you, Peter? I hope you're good. I'm glad you're enjoying this episode. We really put a big effort into doing it. So yeah, I was just making sure. I was just seeing who was tagging me there. All right. So now let's go to the other teams. Let's talk about the other 4 teams, and then let's go the other 4 teams in the fighting, and then let's go to the relegation. So let's talk about. Let's talk about 3 more teams. No, let's talk about the other 4 teams that are fighting for that first spot. I'd say Guadalajara, Guadalajara, Manucci are the only other ones fighting it, and the only one who really stands a chance, in my opinion, is Carlos Manucci, just because they have that one game in hand. So I believe they played 20 games as opposed to Vallejo and Cienciano who played 21. So let's take a look at their fixtures, okay? So first, before we look at Guadalajara, let's look at Manucci's. Manucci are 5th currently, and they have Cobsol away, Los Caimanes at home, Santa Rosa away, Cienciano at home, Atlético Grau away, Sport Vitoria at home, and Cesar Vallejo away. I think that's quite tough actually because they've got the first 2 games should be pretty straightforward. Let's be fair. Then they have a Santa Rosa who are pretty good at home. They have the altitude as well, so that's not an easy game for them. And Cienciano is never an easy game. Cienciano are tearing it up right now, and especially in the form there. I can't see anyone stopping them. Then they go with Atlético Grau and Piura. Atlético Grau have not lost a single home game this season, so that's not easy. And Sport Vitoria should be a breeze, while Vallejo, it can go either way. So what do you think on those fixtures?
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. It's gonna be tough, but again, I guess it's not impossible. We know that it's a strong team, and yeah, I think things could go kind of either way. You know, kind of like a black or white situation, really, in my mind.
For Manucci, for sure. Let's look at the other two. I think Guadala, before we go to Manucci's players, Guadala and Guadalcayoca, the other two fighting it, I don't see these getting close, to be honest. Especially if we look at some of their fixtures. I think Guadal have a bit of an edge over Guadalcayoca. Guadalcayoca is the tougher fixtures, in my opinion. Guadal has one outage away. One outage is struggling a lot. We'll get to them in a second. Guadalcayoca at home. Guadalcayoca aren't very good away from home. Guadal are, so I think that's a pretty straightforward win for Guadal. Salinas away, which is a tough game. Espinal is not an easy place to go to, regardless of how the squad has kind of been torn apart over the season. That's not an easy game to go to. Alianza Atletico at home, which Alianza Atletico are in really good form, and since they usually struggle in altitude, Guadalajara is not altitude, so when they go to Guadalajara, I think that can go either way. There's Sport Loreto at home, which Sport Loreto's have to show up, then that should be a tough game. If you don't know, Sport Loreto the other day, Copsol played against Sport Loreto at home, and Sport Loreto didn't even show up, so Copsol won by walkover. And what's funny is one of my friends lives in Ventanilla, and he went from Ventanilla to Cañete, which is like
to go see the game.
3-4 hours, and the game wasn't even played. So poor man. And Willy Cerrato's last, which, to be honest, Willy Cerrato is pretty much a free win at this point. So, yeah, and Guadalcayoc has Sport Victoria away, Vallejo at home, Guadal away, Juan Aurich at home, Alfredo Salinas away, and Alianza Atletico. They have one less game than everyone else. They played 22. So I think they have tougher games, but I think they have the home games against the strongest teams, but they have that one away game at Espinal, which is not easy. So, Christopher, who do you think has a bigger chance here? I think Guadalajara have been inconsistent, to be honest. Guadalajara are a little bit too. I think Guadalajara are a bit more. I mean, they just lost to Sport Victoria the other day, and that was a tough loss for them.
I don't know. I think that when Guadalajara plays at home, the home crowd has been doing a pretty good job to turning out and really supporting the team, and I think that has put some pressure on the visiting teams. If I'm not mistaken, Guadalajara tied against Cesar Vallejo just last weekend, right? I think that shows you how important the home advantage is, and I think that it can be beneficial to them a little bit more than trying to face than seeing like Guadalcayo's fixture and trying to face Sport Victoria away, like we said, Guadalajara away, and Alfredo Salinas away. So I think that if comparing Unión Guadalajara's home matches to Guadalcayo's home matches, I think that Unión Guadalajara has it a little bit more in the bag than Guadalcayo does.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to think of it. Guadalajara has some interesting players. First of all, Dylan Caro, who's been constantly linked to Alianza Lima in the last few weeks. Doesn't seem to be happening yet, but he's been constantly linked to Alianza, and he's a pretty good player. I've not seen a whole lot of him, but the bits I have seen, he has impressed me. So he's one. He's 19 years old. Then there is Christopher Soto. If you remember, Alianza fans, Ayacucho fans, he played in the Primera División. They didn't cut it, and in Segunda División he's doing all right, but he's still not a fantastic player. So he wound up in the Copa Perú in a few years, no doubt. But he can do all right in this division, I think. I think he's not the worst you can get. So there's Christopher Soto. Then a familiar name, before we go to a familiar name, Diego Caravaggio, who I've seen him. He's an interesting talent. I think he's 20 years old. He's like a deep line playmaker. I've seen a bit of him, and I like what I saw. Christopher, do you remember what you seen Caravaggio? We live tweeted a game before. I think it was whatever Copsol, and we were both impressed with Caravaggio. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I do remember him. If I'm not mistaken, was he a mid?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, yes. Yes, he had some interesting plays at that game. I think it was part of that was quite an interesting game. Copsol was doing really bad at the beginning of the season. They're also losing games at home, and I think that key part of the creation of the plays during that game for Guadal was Caravaggio. For sure. So yeah, no, I think he has some potential. To be honest, I haven't paid as much attention to him, I guess, but for sure, someone to keep our eyes open for.
All right. The last name I wanted to get is Diego Chavez. I'm sure some of you remember him with Universitario. Some seasons he was good, other seasons he was bad. His last season was very good, 2016. He was very good for like half the season, and then he kind of dropped off. But he's at what, I don't know. I think he joined kind of minus the start of the year. Didn't work out for him. I think Machito Gomez didn't want him on the team or something. No, I made that up, but I made that up. I just have to have a pop at Machito Gomez. I'm probably dead tomorrow, but after saying that,
you gotta watch out, dude. But anyways,
I gotta watch out. Okay, I don't think he can speak English anyway. So, next up, Hualgayoc has Jarlin Quintero, who has played at América de Cali when they were in the Segunda División in Colombia, which is no small feat for this division. I've seen him; he's pretty good. The one thing about this was Josias Cardoso and Christopher's favorite player Ronaldo Calera.
No, don't even talk to him. I don't want you to mention that name ever again.
Well, he only scored 5 goals in the Segunda. You said he was scoring hat tricks. He only scored 1 hat trick, and then ever since he's only scored 2 goals. So I guess he's not.
He's getting old.
For
sure.
Yeah, but again, experience is everything in this division. It's not really worked out for him. I think Josias Cardoso and Jarlin Quintero are better players. And the thing about Hualgayoc is that they're not a very good team defensively. They've conceded 13 goals away to stronger sides in recent times. They conceded 4 goals to Juan Aurich. 4 goals to Juan Aurich, 4 goals to Manucci, and then 5 to Cinciano. And I've seen that defense, they did not look organized at all. They were just all over the place. Every time Cinciano ran into the fence in that game, they just fall apart. It's kind of like when you're playing a battle royale game and you're like a new player, and then you hear gunshots, like you start running away from it if you're a new player. That's kind of what I felt the Hualgayoc defense was like. They were like really intimidated, and they just did not want to defend at all. It was just a mess. And the defensive line, I took a closer look. It's Ivan Chumpitas, who I think played for Ayacucho, if it's the right Chumpitas. There's 2 Chumpitas. There's Ivan and Javier. I'm not sure. I think this is the one playing for Ayacucho. And Ayacucho's defense has always been a mess, so it doesn't surprise me much. Javier Senjo, Victor Cartagena, and Junior Casanova, which none of the 3 names I'm really too familiar with, but they did not impress me. And let's go to Manucci's players. There's Pedro Diaz, who have raved on the past few weeks about how he's one of the best Peruvian young keepers. And I stand by that. He's very good. There is Mesa Cuadra, who is no player, but he's not had this success in this division. I mean, he could be good at the hold-up play, but he's only scored 4 goals in 16 appearances, so it's not been great. There's Romanton Matamoros, the backup keeper. Romanton Matamoros is was Grao's keeper last year. And then there's Niger Vega, Marcelo Papano, and Oscar Noronha, all 3 of who are tearing it up this division. Marcelo Papano and Oscar Noronha in particular. Niger Vega's kind of grabbed form gradually in the last few weeks. And as for the new signings, there's Mario Tajima, Renzo Sheput, and Josimar Vargas, the recent signings. So they're only going to get better. What do you think, Christopher?
Yeah, I think it will be quite interesting to see what happens with that. Obviously, they have a goal in mind, and I think that it's not impossible. For some reason, like I said, I feel like it could be a black or white situation with them. We kind of seen that in the past also. I mean, I recall last season them starting very strong, right? 8-1 against my poor Sport Ancash, and if I'm not mistaken, they had a few other results that were kind of like that at home, really just destroyed it. And then after that, they kind of toned down. So they seem to trying to avoid that by kind of reinforcing their team as we get kind of towards the end of the season. But then again, it's just that things are so different this year, honestly, because last year, really, it just mattered if you were on top. If you were the very first one, you were you would be promoted. But this particular year, we'll just have to see how things play out with this new playoff bracket and kind of see who everybody gets paired up with. But for sure, all the teams that we have mentioned, including Carlos Manucci, will for sure be part of that bracket, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we just got a question here. How Jason Beans is doing at Sport Ancash? I thought he was retired because he had a lot of injury problems while he was playing for Muni and Alliance Atletico. That, my friend, we'll get on when we get to the Copa Peru pod. So just be a little bit patient, but we will talk about Jason Beans. I'm sure Christopher has some words on him. So let's go talk about the 6th, 7th, and 8th. Now, mid-table, we're going to kind of just skip because it's kind of pointless. We're going to talk about that in the relegation race. But, okay, so there's Alianza Atletico, who I'm going to check on how many points there are. I think they're on 36 points. They're on 35. Okay, so I'm close. I'm 1 point off. But they're in stellar form. They've won, I think, the last 4, or they've won 3 of the last 4. It's something like that, but they're on a rise. And for a good reason. I've seen them. They have some really talented players. Then there's One Outreach, who are kind of falling. And I think One Outreach is one that is really have to fear that they're going to miss out. And I'll get on to that in a second. And then fighting for that playoff spot, it's Santa Rosa and Atletico Grau, which Atletico Grau, I mentioned earlier, they have not lost a single home game this season. They've drawn a few, but most of them have been wins. So they do not lose at home. They make it their fortress. But amazingly, they're 9th. They've not done too well away from home. And Santa Rosa is kind of a similar story, but Santa Rosa have not been as good at home. And they've got some away results too. Well, I guess Grau have as well, but let's take a look at some of the. I'm going to skip the Alianza Atletico remaining results because I think it's a bit pointless. They're going to make the playoffs. If they don't, I'm going to literally eat an apple with a worm in it. So
I mean, honestly, the gap, just like if you look at that gap between 7th and 8th, between Juan Aurich, who would be going on to the playoffs, and Cultural Santa Rosa, it is 5 points, right? And at this late in the tournament, that's pretty much it, honestly, to me. Unless there's a miracle, I do not see, like, for example, Santa Rosa. Maybe Grau, like you said, they've been pretty solid, but still, Grau is what? 7 points away from
let me check. They are that is correct, 7 points.
Yeah, 7 points away from trying to reach that spot. I think the gap has pretty much set itself in. I think that we know who the 7 that are going to be moving on to the Liguilla are. I think that what's interesting will be to see who ends up pairing with who, because there is seeded pairing already. 4 with 5th, 2nd with 7th, 3rd with 6th. And that could really be quite interesting.
Well, we'll check out some of those clashes at the end of the segunda section, right. I think we should talk about Juan Aurich. Well, first of all, I want to talk about Alianza Atletico because I have some praises I wanted to give to them. At the beginning of the season, I said they were one of the candidates to get relegated because I didn't think they had it in them. I didn't think their owners were really interested. And I think that was the case at the start of the season because at the start of the season, you can clearly see a lack of interest. They really didn't look that good. But as the season went on, they gradually got better. And I think the owners realized, you know what, there's potential. We can go back up. And one thing I love about Alianza Atletico is when they were in the Primera División, they were playing at a different ground. I remember there was a lot of jokes, memes about that ground. People were taking the piss behind the stadium and stuff, and it was really bad. It was a really small ground, and it looked like a park essentially. But the one thing I wanted to say is they were playing there because they were building a new stand for the Campeones de 36, which is their traditional stadium. And now that they're playing, they're filling up pretty much every game. I'm not sure if you've seen it, Christopher, but they're filling up literally every game. Like, we need that in Primera. That's what a Primera looks like. Some people say it's because the new stand was built. But Alianza Atletico is a team with fans, and in the Segunda División, they tend to be more people who go to the games than Primera. So, Cinciano, prime example. Sport Boys, prime example. So, that's one thing that I'm keen on checking out because it's I want to see if Alianza Atletico will do this in the Primera División. I hope they're allowed to play the Campeones de 36. That's their traditional ground. That's the traditional ground of Vendaval. Now, as for some of the players, that's the top scorer in the league, Jair Cordoba, who I think is like 23 years old. He's 23 or 24. And he has 20 goals, 6 of those coming from one match against Willy Serrato. But it's no small feat. I try to get the data for who's the top all-time scorer in the season in the Segunda División. I couldn't find it, unfortunately, but Jair Cordoba surely has to reach 30 goals if he keeps his form up because he's playing very well. I can see a Primera División team going for him. The thing about Jair Cordoba is I don't think he has that much talent, though. I think he's a poacher. I think he's a player that will get the ball in the net. He's a good finisher, good off the ball movements, but nothing outstanding. I think he's a player who will do well at the lower team in the Primera División, which it would be cool if he stays at Sullana for if they get promoted. That'll be a nice sight. Now, as for other players, There's Cristian Vargas, who is a Ciudadana boy. He played for Atletico Grau last season in the Copa Peru. He was a sub, but this season he's playing, and literally you give him the ball from one side of the box, and in a few seconds he'll be on the other side. Because like most of his goals are Maradona-esque. Like he just beats the whole team, and I don't know what he's doing in this division. He's very, very good. And there's Axel Campos, he has a lot of flair. He's another player I'm keen on checking. He played for Sport Loreto last year, but didn't get many appearances. I asked a few journalists in Pucallpa if he was any good, and they're like, "Why are you talking about him? He's no good." But I disagree. He's very good. He's good, really good flair. Alianza Atletico is a team with a lot of interesting talents, like I said. And as for the last one, Joseph Vega, who's played in the Segunda División of Copa Peru for many years now. He's 24 years old, and I think he's also interesting. I think he's a balanced fullback. I don't see a huge future in him because of his age, but I think he could play for a lower league Primera División team, possibly, or one of the teams that's fighting promotion in Segunda. I feel like his limit might be in between the gap between Segunda and Primera, which obviously there is no league in between them, which is kind of like Jordan Rhodes in England, where he's too good for the championship, but he's not good enough for the Premier League, kind of like that. And if you don't want to say anything, Gustavo, I guess we can go to Juan Aurich, Cultura Santa Rosa. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I'll comment just for a minute regarding Alianza Atletico. I think the issue is that for us that kind of grew up in the 2000s and now in this decade, we haven't really seen Alianza Atletico. But in reality, Alianza Atletico is a team with a lot of history in the first division. Aside from that, they were probably the only other team that managed to stay in the first division that it's from like outside Lima that stayed for more than 10 consecutive years. And so then they had their relegation in the, I want to say 2010, 2011.
Yeah, I think it was 2010 because it was 2010 because 2011 was Senna was when it went down. So
right. So in 2010, after they're relegated from first division, they don't go to second division, they don't go to Copa Peru, they just completely disappear, and then they are brought back some 4 or 5 years later out of like magic also by I believe supposedly the owner got like a FIFA letter or like a court of arbitration letter saying that they had to be reinstated, and then magically they reappeared. But obviously they didn't have the grounds, they didn't have the money, they didn't have anything else. That's why they're back in the second, or they're now finally for the first time ever actually in the second division. But like you said, I think that the people in that locality did really crave seeing their team again after so many years. That's the reason when they're turning up. And the hope would be that they continue to do so. But we'll see. We'll see. But yes, Campeones del 36 is a very classic stadium for Peruvian football also. People think that it's called Campeones del 36, Champions of 36, because of the 1936 Olympics. But it's actually because the local team, the regional team, won a championship that year, and so that was their first championship, so they named the stadium after that. But anyways, that's just one of those many things I have collected in my brain as random pieces of information that I guess come in handy.
Campeones del 36 is a very nice ground, and it's even better now with the new stand. It's not like the Monumental where they've been building a stadium that's way too big for them. No, this is big enough, I think. So I think this is the biggest it should ever get, unless Alianza Atletico win like 3 Libertadores and they have fans from Nepal or something. I don't know. So let's look at Juan Aurich. So Juan Aurich are kind of on a drop. They've only won 1 game in the last 5, and they've had a good start this season. They have a good squad too. They have a Joel Herrera who's he's very good defensively for the division. Jose Estrada, who he wasn't very good at La U, but he's playing as a winger now. He's scoring goals. He's doing better. Maybe he didn't get a second chance in the Primera, but it's a different position because as a right back, he's going to work. No doubt. He's not playing as a right back. Then there's Anderson Cueto, who is one of Cristal's failed projects. He's been in the Segunda División for many years now, and he's been quite a marquee player there. So there's Campolónico still there, Marvin Rios. And Alfredo Carrillo is one of the top scorers on loan from Alianza. He has 7 goals. The top scorer is Cueto right now with 8 goals. And Juan Aurich have away to Cesar Vallejo, at home to Huaral, away to Hualgayoc, at home to Salinas, away to Alianza Atletico, and at home to Loreto. That's pretty tough if you ask me. I think Alfredo Salinas and Sport Little they should be beating, but I don't want to say that because they literally drew with Sport Vitoria, who were near the bottom the other day. So they really are in a bad run. So I don't want to say that they're going to draw. They're going to win it. And as for their the eighth place, which I think is only 5 points. No, they're not 4 points behind. They have Sport Loreto at home, Willy Cerrato away, which, like I said, Willy Cerrato this part of the season is pretty much a free win. Then there's Carlos Manucci at home, Copsol away from home, Los Caimanes at home, and Cienciano away, which I think all those games are winnable except for Cienciano away, if you ask me. And Cultural Santa Rosa, the problem is they don't win away from home. The last 7 games away from home, they've lost them all. But I guess Willy Cerrato they're gonna win, so that's one away game they've got out of the way. Copsol is a coin toss, and in Cienciano they're gonna lose. So, what do you think on these runs, Christopher? Cultural Santa Rosa and Juan Aurich are gonna battle. I think Grau is gonna kind of stay out of the way here, personally. And what do you think here?
Well, like I said a second ago, I think that I mean we can see some interesting games coming from them here pretty soon, but I do not think that they're going to be really able to cling on to one of those 7 spots. The gap is starting to form. The gap is starting to become wider, and with time, it might only become even wider than that. Because obviously, if they win, let's say for some reason all their matches at home and all of that, I still think that the teams on top of them, the 5th, 6th, and 7th place, can still have enough of a gap that they can be comfortable with where they are. But still, though, I think Cultural Santa Rosa has been in this division for quite a few years now, and they seem to be kind of stuck on that between bottom and mid-table position. So I mean, it's nothing surprising. I think Atletico Grau has had a good season. It's their first season in the second division also. So I'm sure that they will have learned a lot of lessons that they can then go and kind of improve upon for next season. And I think that we're seeing a pretty good season from them right now. Like you said, they haven't lost at home at all. And they're probably going to try to do even better. Do even better next year.
All right, now let's go to the relegation battle. Copsol, Los Caimanes, and Salinas. I'm going to skip you because there's not much to say. I mean, Salinas is going to win most of their home games. They lost 5-0 for the first time at home. That was a pretty big shock to some of the people at the Chalaca, which I work with sometimes. They were pretty shocked to that result. So, Los Caimanes, I did want to say something. Michele Sobo was really disappointed in me because he had a really bright start to the season, and after I praised him on Twitter once, he just never played well again. So it's like a tweeter's curse. Curse.
Yeah, it's a birdie touch curse.
Yeah. Okay. I should also mention that Germán Carti Jr. is playing at Los Caimanes, but it's not the same one at Alianza. So apparently Germán Carti has 2 sons named Germán, which that man is a living legend. There's a player named Germán Carti at Los Caimanes, and there's a player named Germán Carti at Alianza. I mean, it can't be a coincidence, can it?
It can't. No, I'm guessing that one of them was like, oh, I really like Germán Carti, so I'm gonna name my son Germán, and their last name is Carti, and the other one is actually Germán Carti's son.
Okay. Let's go on to the relegation battle. So first, talk about Willy Cerrato. Like I said, any game against them is a free win. They're pretty much a dead team. Now, some of the things that are going wrong with the team. First of all, I'm not sure if John Galicchio is there anymore, but Luis Galicchio is there. I'm sure you remember him, Christopher, from Sport Rosario. Yes. Luis Galicchio. But first of all, they have a low knee from Universitario named Patricio Torres. He's a goalkeeper, and for some reason, he's played 10 games in forward, and he's managed to score 1 goal at the same time. So that's the first thing they're doing wrong. Secondly, the last 3 games, or 4 of the last 3 games, or 3 of the last 3 games, 3 of the last 4 games, I'm sorry, they've lost 8-0, all of those games, and then they lost at home to Sport Little 4-1, which is still pretty bad. So they're pretty much dead. They're 3 points at this point. Orlando Lavalle, the manager of Copsol, he clearly said that he did not enjoy the 8-0 win against Cerrato because it made him sad how the club can be so poorly run, and those players how those players are poorly treated, and that's basically what.
Well, this week they only showed up with 12 players. So
Yeah.
11 that played on the field. I mean, that's the reason why the Puro Universitario kid is playing as forward, because there's literally no one else. I remember, I remember not this season, but the season before that one, when Sporancash made it all the way to the playoff against Cantolao. The coach Orlando Maldese was complaining, and he was complaining hard that he only had 16 players available, right? And that, I mean, that was already a tough situation as that was. I can't imagine how it would be playing with 12 players. Those poor guys know that they're going to be having to play all 90 minutes. There's no substitutions. There is no getting, like a cramp in the middle of the game because there's no one to sub you. And
Yep.
honestly, for professional sports, that is the only thing that seeing like an animal that has been wounded, and then just like right there on the floor. You can't do anything about it. I mean, it's really sad, and it's really unfortunate, and they don't deserve that as professionals. They deserve much better.
Yeah, for sure. Especially the whole Patricio Torres thing is just disrespectful. Like for the both Lau and the player. So he was
Yeah.
Lau's third choice keeper. So that's terrible. But let's move on to the relegation battle. Now, I just want to say quickly that we're not going to talk about Copa Peru in this one. We're kind of running low on time in the end. We got to plan. Me and Christopher made a mistake in our planning. And we'll make it up for you, though. And we will answer the Jason Baines' question. So that's one thing I promised to answer, and we will answer it. So, but first, let's talk about the relegation battle. So there is Sport Loreto in 14th, which they're currently in the relegation zone, and Sport Victoria in 13th. Now, Sport Victoria has Hualgayoc at home, Salinas away, Alianza Atlético at home, Loreto away, Cerrato at home, Manucci away, and Copsol at home. While Loreto have Santa Rosa away, Cinciano at home, Grau away, Victoria at home, Vallejo away, Guadalajara at home, and Aurich away. Now, Loreto has their home advantage against Victoria, and that is going to be huge for them because, and I don't know if they're taking it so seriously anymore because of that walkover they got against Copsol just a week ago. And I think that Sport Loreto, I don't know who has the edge here. They both have equally tough games. I mean, Sport Victoria has to go to Espinal, which is always tough. They have Cerrato, so they have a free win, and they have Sport Loreto Vallejo away, Cinciano at home, and Aurich away. Well, Aurich away is winnable or tieable just because of how poor they've been. But I think Grau is a loss. I think the main one we have to pay attention to is the Victoria game, which I haven't checked dates, but yeah, it is that's the game. And one thing I've noticed about these two teams, they don't have a lot of veterans, and I think that's one thing that's really hurt them because, like I said, veterans is really important in this division. I personally want Sport Loreto to stay up, just because they have Marco Godos, who is a former Dean player, so I want them to stay up for that. And I hope I stay up just for Marco Godos. No. In seriousness, here's the question: who would you prefer to see stay up as a Peruvian football fan? The team from Ica, which is a big city, an important city, and has a lot of is based in a region that gets a lot of players in the national team and stuff, or a team from the Amazon, which there's only one other team from the Amazon, the professional divisions, and that's Union Comercio. So who would you prefer to see stay up?
To be honest with you, that is a tough question, especially because throughout the seasons we have seen Sport Victoria actually be fairly professional compared to some of the other teams in the second division that do not take it seriously, or unfortunately are not given the chances that they should to be able to keep consistent campaigns. But Sport Victoria, on the other hand, they're always signing sponsorship deals. They hold their press conferences. They try to be professional, and I think that it's always good for the sport, especially for the second division, as we know that it's a very frail division. If you look at the division 10 years ago, there's a chance that none of those players were playing. None of those teams were in that division at all, meaning that we're just having a lot of turnover very, very fast. So Sport Victoria, the good thing is that I think that if they were to go down, they would not be one of those teams that just disappears, right? I think that they would continue to try to work harder, and they could probably come back we could see good performances from them in the Copa Peru in upcoming years. In the national stage and even back in the Segunda División. Um, but then again, I do think that Unión Comercio technically is from the jungle, which is a little bit more of the forgotten region of Peru, but they're not from deep in the jungle. I mean, they're barely kind of like borderline between the Sierra and the Amazon rainforest.
Kind of like Chachapoyas then, in a way.
Exactly right. I think that Sport Loreto is a lot more representative of the region, and as such, they do deserve some football in their region, honestly, because other than Sport Loreto, there used to be CNE, which have not been doing as well. Estudiantil CNE did not make it to the national stakes
They
stage.
did. They did.
They didn't,
No,
right?
they
And
did.
that was
They did.
kind of
They did. I
they,
said they did.
they did, and that's been kind of the hope. I mean, they had a decent campaign last year in the national stage. So I mean, okay, so that is some good news to hear that they're still there. Uh, So I don't know. I'm honestly conflicted between the both of them. But if anything, I think that like you said, also their fixtures are quite interesting because their away games are tough. Sport Loreto, having Grau and Vallejo and Orange away, that's going to be tough. And then Victoria going, having Salinas and Manucci away are also tough. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we might see kind of an early, contention for an early fight for to see who stays in the division between the two of them in that game that they have against each other, and that could potentially decide a lot. Or who knows, they might continue to be title up until the very end, and have to play a playoff match, uh, relegation playoff match at the end of the season. So I don't know. I kind of feel for both of those teams, really.
Sport Victoria wasn't not like many people predicted Los Caimanes at the beginning of the year. I think Los
Yeah,
Caimanes did well this year to stay up, even though they still have Machito Gomez and Michel Sobos kind of dropped in form. But Los Caimanes have dropped in form, Reefer. They've lost the last four, but they're going to stay up. They've almost done it. They have to go. They have to continue this really bad run to go down, and I think it's possible. But given the games that Victoria and Loreto have and how tough they are, I think it's kind of. I think the chances of them staying up are pretty high. So I think Los Caimanes is safe for another year. And the thing I like about Caimanes is that they're a team that went down. They went up and they went straight back down in 1 year. But the thing I like about them is that they didn't give up, because most Peruvian teams, when you can see a lot of double relegations because there's not enough interest in trying to work your way back to the Primera División. And yeah, no, there's not enough interest in trying to work your way back in the Primera División. They literally just go down and give up. Look, Caimanes was not like that. Look, Caimanes have maintained their position in this league. They're basically one of the league's OGs. Maybe not OGs, but they're one of the. They've been in the league this
they've been
entire
around
decade.
for a long time. Los Caimanes is part of that group that I think was a very interesting group that played together the Copa Peru with Real Garcilaso and with Pacifico. So
Yeah.
it was Pacifico, Real Garcilaso, and Los Caimanes, and all three of those teams at one point, well, Real Garcilaso, of course, is still in the first division. They've had really memorable campaigns, but both Pacifico and Los Caimanes also made it to the first division at different points. And Los Caimanes, like you said, is a good example of a team that's gonna up, come back down, and remain there, stayed there, while you have Pacifico, which disappeared. You have
Yeah, no,
Peruvian.
my
You
friend.
have
My friend is a Pacifico fan. My friend is a Pacifico fan, and he told me the team doesn't exist anymore. They just play in the youth teams now. That's it.
yeah, yeah. Another example of that is also La Bocana, which have completely disappeared, I believe.
Well, kind of. I mean, they're still Chuda's number one team, but they had an administrative problems and they decided not to compete this year. So they're kind of on that route. But their rivals Parachique are actually in the Copa Peru. So that's they're in the national stage. So that's kind of an interesting one. And let's see. Let me see. We're gonna talk about some of their players. I already talked about Marco Godos, who is my boy, Marco Godos from DIM. Deportivo Independiente Miraflores. And as for Sport Victoria, don't really have anyone of note. They have a very young squad. Like I said, their oldest player and their only player over 30 is Rudy Maravi, sorry, not Maravi. And they're the joint second lowest scoring team in the league with only 22 goals. So only Cerrato has less. And I'm trying to remember who has the lowest. I believe it was Santa Rosa. Yeah, they have 22 goals only. So they're the joint lowest scoring team in the league, the second joint. So to put it straight, Cerrato are dead. Sport Loreto is probably going to fight it out to the end. And the number one spot is going to be a fight between Cesar Vallejo, Manucci, and Cinciano, basically. I don't think Guadalajara and Guadalajara can do it. So I'm going to say it's those three. Now, to end the pod, because we've had a really good pod, I think we got to answer the two questions you've got.
Okay.
First, we got a question from Onsero Navarro in the chat. He says, "How is Jason Beans doing at Sport Ancash?" Well, he's played more than one game. He's been there for a while now since the Provincial. But how do you think of him in your first game, Christopher? This is the second spell at the club, I think.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, it is. I think. Well, he had a pretty decent game, honestly. I'm still conflicted about Sport Ancash, honestly, and what happened on the Sunday. But no, he's been all right. He's been all right. I trust that things will get better, and I trust that that we will see more of Vincent for sure. But he had a pretty decent game, I would say. I think he showed some talent. He showed some promise.
He's a very Copa Peru Segunda División player. He's got experience. He's not that old either. I think he's like 27, 28. He's got some years to go. I think he's a good signing for Ancash. I think he's one that Ancash should have brought in is Christopher Charun, who went to Chimbote, and now he's at your rival city. So have fun, Cipesa. He's gonna score goals for you. He scored goals for Ancash last year in the worst of situations. So he wasn't the best player, but at least he scored goals.
He was loyal. He was loyal to the team till the end for sure. I think I would prefer him over Ronaldo Calera last season.
Your boy.
Any day of the week. But yeah.
Now let's answer the last three questions and let's end the pod. Like I said, we will make up for the Copa Peru bit that we missed out. Unfortunately, we kind of had a problem in planning. And between me and Christopher, both of us are at fault, so nobody's at fault. Yeah. We will do a Copa Peru pod. We'll make it like a part 2, a follow up to this. Hopefully next week. Hopefully next week. That's how the time goes. So, the lower league clubs use a lot of loan players in the first division. Not as much as you would think in Europe. Like not as much as Italy, for sure. Not Italy or Spain. But they still do sometimes. I mean, they're more under the radar. Like Gianfranco Chavez, the under-20 Peru international, just joined the Real Copsol, and he's doing quite well. He's playing as a right back instead of a center back, which I think that's his original position. So I guess it's fine. It's not like Bengochea playing Villa Marina as a winger. I had to get a Bengochea pop in. I'm sorry. Okay.
Peter must be shaking his head right now.
Some of the lower league. I have written about some of them. There's Gianfranco Chavez, Hugo Akajima, who's a Cienciano from Cristal. I talked about him earlier in this pod. I'm trying to remember who else. There is also Patricio Torres, who's a Cerrato, and he's playing out of position in the worst way possible. And I'm just trying to see who else is on loan. Oh no, I think Anthony Lavalle is there permanently from Grau. I'll tell you it out. I'm just looking up. I think one out each have one. Yeah, Alfredo Carrillo is on loan. So there's a few, but there's not many. There's only a few of them. I think there should be more loanees in the second division, if you ask me. They definitely should. Now, does any lower league club develop players well and force the sales they can't keep them? Yes, for sure. There's a lot of them. Gianni Opposito was an example of this. Mm-hmm. Gianni Opposito, you say what you want about him at Alianza, but he has scored goals a lot in the Segunda División, and he has earned his way up to the Primera. I think he's a solid mid-table player. So, they do develop players somewhat well. Dylan Caro has been developed well, Guadal, but Guadal is more of an institution than the rest of the clubs. So that might be an exception. Sarvallejo has developed Ali Benitez, and there's several other players. Well, Christopher, you can answer the last question as well if you want. I didn't go over to you. What do you think?
I was just going to say, think whatever you want of Super Mantequilla Fernandez. but he did play some games in the second division. He even played for Sporankas at one point. And
I think Rui Diaz did as well.
what was that?
I think Rui Diaz did as well. I think he played at U America or something, or U
Yeah,
Cotahuanco.
Rui Diaz played for U America Cochahuayco, which was the second division version of
No,
Universitario, which also disappeared. I mean, they're no longer a team either. But yeah, there actually has been a lot of players that, as youth, have gone to the second division and had decent campaigns and made their way back up to the first division. And then there's other cases of players that have made it way from the bottom, like my boy Jaime Opósito,
Humber
but
Luz
also
Postito.
Andre El Nene Rengifo.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
didn't even run. Then he full started at Chapuyos, which is in Chapuyos. He actually started in Copa Peru. It's actually Copa Peru is like the main developer of clubs outside of Lima. If you didn't make it to Lima as a young boy from Piura or Huancavelica, then you got to make it in Copa Peru, and that's when they'll notice you. That's the best chance to notice you. Like I said, Christian Vargas, which I think is very good. I think he'll end up in the Primera División soon. He's a Ciudad boy. He didn't play in Lima ever. He didn't play youth football. Another player, a Hiwachi one from Lima, Nene Regifo, who started at Adasis Lurin. And then he has some time in Alfonso Ugarte, the Copa Peru. Then he has some time at Sport Ancash in the Segunda, where he was the revelation player. And he's another example.
we got him back. We absolutely love him, and good for him that he's at Cantolao. But honestly, we wish we had him back.
All right, and yeah, usually they can't keep them. Dylan Carroll can't expect to stay much longer. I think the only club, I think the only club that could really keep any players within them is the Cesar Vallejo. I think that's the only club that really stands a chance. That's keeping the players. The rest, not really. But I think Pedro Diaz is next in line for a player that's going to go to the Primera División. Ideally, up to a team in the north, which for him, anyways. Now, last question: how hard is it for a third division club to go up the ladder? Very difficult. It's a lottery essentially. I'll give an example. Okay, my club team, we were put in the group of death in the Provincial, which had Afe Cosmos, Ete from Chorrillos, and what was the last club? That was it. It was the Immaculada, the school Immaculada Premasura from San Isidro. And we literally did everything right, except we lost that one game against Cosmos, and there's nothing we can do about it. We won the next two games, and there's nothing we can do about it. Like, one game out of all those games you play literally ruins your campaign. So you can't
Yeah,
mess up.
yeah, but at the same time, the way that the Copa Peru works, if you play your cards just right, you can find a route that's easier, and there's also routes that are way harder. I think
Of
that
course.
if you're a team from Lima, right, from one of the districts in Lima, it's going to be way harder because you have to go through the filter, which is Interligas, right?
Yeah.
And then after, even if you make it through the Interligas, which one out of like 100 teams do, then you have to make it to the through that regional Lima stage, which is also very tough. But then again, if you have another example, would be like Binacional, right, which started in Puno, and then they said, you know what, it's really hard to go to the the first division from here, so they moved the team to Arequipa, and that is your fixture and much more talent in the region, and now they're in the first division. So it all depends
Or
on how much money you have, really, and where you place yourself in the country can give you a better chance of course, if you don't mess up during the tournament, reaching the first division very quickly which, for example, was also the case of Real Garcilaso, club created in 2009. By 2011, they're in the first division. By 2013, they're in the Copa Libertadores.
another example is Hijos de Yurimaguas. Hijos de Yurimaguas thought Loreto was too tough, and they moved to Ventanilla, which is like the easiest qualifying stage in the world. So like you
Right.
literally just have to play like one stage and then you're in. So
Right.
it depends on the path. But like you also got to think about your local team. Most teams don't do this because like they're very traditional to the area. A few of them, like the Futula Bocana, for example, they're traditional to Sechura, so they're not going to move. So I think they
Of
should.
course.
I think they should. Binacional isn't traditional at all. So I think and Regal so isn't. So they have no need to move.
No. Well, but then again, that just depends on what, if you're a club owner, or if you're someone that wants to make a career in soccer, right? and you don't care about the fans, kind of MK Don style, then yeah, of course, like you'll just put the team wherever you think is more convenient, and you'll make it up the ranks. Or you can actually, not cheat the system, and fight it out from Ancash, fight it out from Madre de Dios, fight it out from Ucayali, fight it out from whatever region you happen to start your team from.
Very few times the best team in Lima has actually won the Interliga. So that's why there's not been a Lima champion since 1978. So I believe it was Juventud Santo. What'd you say?
Which I'm completely fine with, because I already think that we have very solid teams in Lima, and I think that we need to.
I think Lima needs one more team. I think Lima needs one more team in the Segunda División. Just one. There's none right now. But other than that,
I think I would be fine with that. I mean, Lima region already has very, very classic teams in Segunda División, like Unión Moral, Club Sol, I guess. Classic.
Well, isn't classic. It's classic.
Really, not really, but they have made a name for themselves. They've been in the first division for quite a few years too. Part of what Brian would call OGs.
That's what you call them. That's why I'm saying it.
No, that's what you said. I didn't say that. You said that.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Okay. Well, anyways, there was like Dim, Afe Cosmos, and Defensor Lubricantes were the three best teams in the Lima this year, and Géminis got the furthest, and they lost to a ghost goal as well, so they would have qualified as well. They lost a goal that didn't cross the line, and they were going to qualify without that. So they very few times the Lima team I think this year the best team won, Defensor Lauresur, but otherwise very few times they actually make it. So yeah, that's kind of hard. I think other regions they do. I think in Piura the best team always makes it. I think in Cusco the best team always makes it, but in Lima it's not that way. So
no,
that's going to be the end of our very first special pod, at least part one of the pod, because like I said, we might do a part. No, we will do a part two at some point. We'll make up for this false advertising method that we kind of messed up on. We kind of backfired on us, but we'll be back for part two. And make sure you tune in tomorrow for the main pod, which we were talking about the national team friendlies just in time as well, because the Peru friendlies on Thursday. And I hope you enjoy this special pod. We hope to get more of these in the future, not just Copa Peru, but we think about like politics, like a Copa America draw reaction. Those are a few ideas we have in the bag right now. So we hope you like this, and we will be back tomorrow for the main pod. So join us tomorrow on the same channel, and my Twitter is B_Bertie98. Christopher, what is yours?
I'm Christopher Viscardo. You can find me in VIZ_FC.
All right, so that's gonna end the pod, and we'll hopefully you guys listen to us tomorrow.